we'll go ahead and get started. Usually I like to give it a couple minutes just to make sure people can join, but we got a lot to get through, so we'll go ahead and kick it off. Um, Today we're going to be talking about reconciliation, just like the slide says. We're going to talk about the basics of reconciliation, and then how Webgility kind of fits into the picture, because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions around reconciliation and automation specifically, and kind of working through the misconceptions and how Webgility can help reconciliation is a pretty important thing, I think. So, um, just to get started, my name is John May. I am the engagement manager for Webgility. If you've been to any of our webinars, seen any of our videos, or called in on our support like phone line, you've heard my voice. And then I am joined by our lovely senior implementation specialist, David Pond. Say hi, David.
Hi, David.
Uh, awesome. And yeah, like I said, today we're going to talk through reconciliation. I always do like a, sort of a preamble in these customer webinars just to kind of set the stage. I know, again, for the last, month or so that we've been doing these, the topics that we've covered are a lot more on the sort of entry level side of things. We're kind of starting with the basics. And for the basics, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Reconciliation can be, it doesn't have to be, it can be sort of a complicated topic. And for a lot of people, it means sort of slightly different things. So I wanted to kind of set the baseline for reconciliation, talk about how WebGility fits into that picture, and then we'll go over to David to kind of show in action the ways that WebGility can make reconciliation easier and the different things that WebGility can do, the different workflows that it can sort of mold itself to. And then, of course, we'll end with a Q&A at the very end. Although we do have a, dedicated Q&A section, you are more than welcome to ask questions either in the chat or in the Q&A box at the bottom. Um, just know that if it's not super relevant to what we're talking about in the moment, we may take a minute to get to it or save it for the Q&A at the very end. Um, Other things, just some housekeeping things that I like to remind people of. We did start a customer advisory panel around the same time we started these customer webinars. So if you are interested in essentially beta testing for Webgility, kind of letting our team internally know how the product works for you and ways that we can improve, you do get paid for the engagements that you do with us. So I'll drop a link in the chat for the sign up on that. All right, just to get started, reconciliation and Webgility. Just to again set the baseline for reconciliation. Ultimately, reconciliation is that final step at the end of your, monthly accounting closeout, quarterly accounting closeout, daily accounting closeout, if you do that, where you take the totals and amounts from all of your online orders, any information that comes in with them, any expenses, and you compare it to your records in QuickBooks or the accounts that the payments were actually processed to make sure that everything matches up. Ultimately, you're just making sure things match up so that there's no loss in information when you're trying to track where money is going, right? So reconciliation is just that final step into making sure that all the dots are connected in your business, knowing where the money is moving to, knowing where you're losing money, knowing where you're making money, right? So it's all just a way to keep your books bulletproof, so to speak. It gives you the benefit of being audit proof, I guess, sort of an added benefit. But ultimately, you want to use reconciliation as sort of the jumping off point to understand where your business is going, where you might be falling short, right? So, one thing, and a super common misconception that we sort of run into at Webgility is that people assume that Webgility is doing that reconciliation for you. And that's a fair assumption, right? Because all of our marketing, all the things that we say sort of enforce the idea that you kind of hit a button or you set something on a timer and will do everything automatically for you, which is almost 100% true. And when I say almost, I mean that Webgility will get you to the finish line or get you as close to the finish line as possible when it comes to reconciliation. We can pull in all the information that you allow us to from your orders. And if we have your cost of goods sold on QuickBooks and you have all the information there for us, we'll put all the information where you need it. But from there, it's always a good idea to have that set of human eyes to go and dot the I's and cross the T's, so to speak, right? So we give you the option in some cases to sort of route things where they should end up in a final reconciliation, right? When you're kind of sending everything off to the correct bank accounts, we can set that up, but we generally would recommend, and we'll get into this a little bit more in detail, using sort of buffers and, in this case, clearing accounts or holding accounts, some people call them, to make sure that there's that extra step of, just organization to where everything is segmented, where everything is easily identifiable and can then easily be sent off to the right account, if that makes sense for final reconciliation. So, all that to say, Webgility doesn't reconcile for you, but we do enable easy reconciliation through pulling in as much information as we can from orders and pushing them into QuickBooks for you. So I think that's the main thing that we want to drive home today is that there's in our mind, and I think in most e-commerce businesses and most accountants' mind, reconciliation should never be automated. You can in some cases, and for very simple workflows, I think you could get away with it very easily. But when it comes to tracking where money's going, I think at the very end of the day, automation will never replace a human set of eyes for that last step because you want to make sure that things are set up properly for you. So yeah, with that, I guess preamble out of the way, I wanted to take it over to David, who can kind of dive in a little bit deeper, show all the ways which Webgility can connect those dots for you. Bring in the information, post it to QuickBooks, and then we'll talk about some of the different workflows that come about when it comes to reconciliation. Some of the things that people will run into with certain stores, or like I said, certain workflows. So take it away, David. I'll go ahead and stop my screen share, and you can pick up from here.
Yep, I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. And I see somebody's kind of upset that we live in Arizona and have really nice weather. Okay, it's pool. It's pool time for us. I mean, I
Yeah.
could jump in the pool right now. It's warm enough.
Hey, I'll trade the cold and rain for today. Maybe a few days. I'll take that.
Yeah. So let me share my screen here. Um, I'm going to go over kind of an overview of what we're doing first. So Webgility is supporting like transactional accounting reconciliation. So what we're talking about is we're looking at the transactions, the initial transactions. We're looking at all the financial data that's going into QuickBooks. Make sure, like John said, it goes into the right locations, right places. So like if you have, for instance, a Shopify here and you have orders coming in, all this information coming in for like this one doesn't show fees, it's a test account, but right now any transactions, any order information is going to come in. We're talking about like the transactions, refunds, the discounts and fees. Those all are part of your reconciliation. So when we bring those orders into Webgility, and especially if you have multiple different stores, as you can see, I have a bunch of different stores connected here. It starts to get really complex. It starts to get hard to keep everything organized in QuickBooks. You want to make sure that as a basis, what you're getting paid at the bank for your transactions of what you're selling on your store, ties out properly in QuickBooks. If there are fees, obviously the amount that you get paid is less fees. So we want to post those so that in your clearing or holding account in QuickBooks, that those fees are taken out, that if there was a refund or a discount or something like that, those are all recorded. We go in and we configure all that in Webgility. So basically what we want to do is say, hey, we're going to take all the information, put it in QuickBooks, put it to the correct accounts, go in and set up the expenses and fees to post to those accounts, clearing accounts, merchant fees accounts, that kind of stuff. And also we've got, you see the word payout here. So for Amazon, you have a 2-week settlement report. On Shopify, you have a daily payout. So we have a different setup for different connections. Not every online store or marketplace configures exactly the same. So in the case of Amazon and Shopify, we set it up as an open invoice going into QuickBooks. that open invoice gets posted into a clearing account to keep them separate. So basically, you got to think of clearing accounts as what you're getting paid by the bank. So if you have a separate, like you have WooCommerce and PayPal, PayPal's what you're going to get your banks in your bank statement, what you get paid. So you want a clearing account for PayPal. Sometimes, and this is a kind of a corner case, is people can take their PayPal and post it to their PayPal account in QuickBooks. But most of the time you want to have a clearing account. So like if you have a Shopify, you have Amazon, you have BigCommerce, each one of those stores should have a clearing account so that as the transactions come in, you keep them separated in the clearing account. We also want to post the fees and discounts and refunds and all that in and out of that clearing account. And what we're doing is we're saying that as those all go into that clearing account, they kind of settle in that clearing account. So what's left over after everything's taken out of that clearing account is what you got paid at the bank. And that's what you transfer out. That's that final reconciliation step where you take that amount out of the clearing account. In the
Yeah.
meantime, for like, just a second, John. In
Oh,
the
you're good.
meantime, like your Amazon or your Shopify, if you are using invoice, it goes in as an open invoice. The daily fee on Shopify would come in and post and mark that invoice as paid, take it off of the AR account and put it into the clearing account for you to reconcile the final step of reconciliation. Amazon's the same way. All the orders for 2 weeks will post into accounting. There'll be an open invoice when the settlement report downloads into Webgility and it posts all the fees. It marks all those Amazon orders as paid. What's left in the clearing account then is what you should be transferring out against the bank statement of what you got paid. So other stores, it's just going to be the amount. We might not be able to get fees on some of them. So there are some differences on the setups. There is also where people decide they want to do, because they're used to it, they want to do their fees into undeposited funds. Well, undeposited funds, it's a very common way for people to, uh, work in QuickBooks. But with undeposited funds, I see people putting all these different stores into undeposited funds. You got this mess in undeposited funds of all these different orders from different sources, and it takes a really long time to go through and reconcile it. Even if it's tagged or showing that what store, or maybe there's a class or something separating them, it still makes it really, just a big jumble going into undeposited funds. Second part of that is when you're dealing with refunds, we would see a refund on an order. We'll post that refund back to the clearing account. As you can see here, this would be the Shopify refund to come in and post to the clearing account. Now, if you're using undeposited funds, it's not set up as a bank account in QuickBooks. So not being a bank account, you can't post a refund into it. You can't post fees into it. So that's why we're recommending that you go into a clearing account, because you want those totals, that information to go into that clearing account and kind of plus and minus in that clearing account. And when you're all said and done, you're transferring that amount out of the clearing account against your bank statement. And that way, it makes it easier to keep everything separated. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just kind of gonna further reinforce sort of the point that you're making. I know, Alexander, you asked what a clearing account meaning a bank account. Essentially, yes. The way that I like to explain bank account or clearing account specifically is that it's sort of a dummy interim account, right? Sort of like the way that people use undeposited funds. I think that's a really good example here. People use undeposited funds as sort of like the pre-dumping ground, right, for their fees and order information. They'll take it from undeposited funds and then put it in the correct account. That's the way that we look at clearing accounts. But the difference with clearing accounts is that you can create any number of them for any number of ways that you want to segment the data that's coming in from Webgility. So a good example is if you have a Shopify and an Amazon, and you have payment processing fees and all these different things, you can create a clearing account for each of them and then route them there through Webgility so that when you do go to do that final reconciliation, it's a lot more segmented for you. You can just go into each individual of those clearing accounts and then send them to their corresponding, actual bank account for the final reconciliation. So it's just a way of making things more, in my opinion, digestible. Because when you have everything just going into one big account and then you need to do final reconciliation, it can be a lot harder to sift through all that noise if you're just looking for one specific thing at a time.
Yeah, so if you were doing it manually, you would be taking the fees out of what you were paid, from Shopify manually. Here, we're posting to the correct accounts to automate that. So like here you see the bank account is Shopify. There's a vendor account for Shopify, and then you have bank service charges for the expenses and fees to go into. So what that's doing is it's kind of settling out in that clearing account and leaving you the transaction amount that you get paid at the bank to transfer out of that clearing or holding account. Now, another thing that happens is you may have like shipping on your account, like a shipping application. We do connect to ShipStation and Shipping Easy just to get the fees. So what happens is as the order comes in and there's shipping on that order, um, you put that shipping amount into QuickBooks as an income going into QuickBooks. So shipping would go in as a positive on the actual order, and then we actually link out to your ShipStation or Shipping Easy. We bring the fee in and post that fee into QuickBooks so that you can actually see the difference of what was paid for shipping by your customer and what it cost you to do the shipping, and you can tie that out in QuickBooks. So there's those type of fees also that we can bring in and post. So not only just the payment providers for separation, but you can have other items separated. So when we're doing the connections here, I'm just going to show real quick. If we need to, we can post differently. And here the most common is the payment provider. So we would say payment method. We would go in and we would look for, like if you had PayPal or Shopify payments or different payments in your website, we would pick those. And then each one of those can separately go in as a separate setup here where you pick a different clearing or holding account for those to go into. So you can keep them all separated. So that what we're doing is we're just funneling that information from your website, your online e-commerce into QuickBooks to make it the easiest possible to reconcile that last step in QuickBooks. And one of the things I was showing here is that undeposited funds is other current asset. It's not a bank account. It is a very common way. I don't know why QuickBooks made it other current asset instead of like a clearing account. But yeah, we do recommend doing a clearing account. If you see here, there's a little lightning bolt. If there's a lightning bolt on a bank, say it's your checking account that you're using, and it's got a bank feed on it, we do not want to connect to a bank feed. What happens is it doesn't automatically reconcile, so it just doubles the amount. It doesn't really help you in that respect, so that's why we recommend doing the clearing account. So I think really the next thing I want to show is the information in orders here. Let's see if I got one here. Of course, my test account doesn't show the fees, but let's see if I was hoping I could find one.
Yeah, the
Payment
problem with using
processor
a test
fees.
account is that it's also being used internally by our dev team.
Yeah.
So we're kind of at the whim at some of the changes they make. So just bear
Every
with
time
us while
every
we
time I
figure it
go
out.
in here, it's different. So here, payment processor fees, you can see in the order details, we have shipping and handling, we have tax if there's tax, we have discounts if there's discounts. And then up here, you see like the payment processor fee. You could see a shipping fee if there was one up there, it would tie out to the order. and that information is all going to go into QuickBooks to help you with your reconciliation. I've seen people do it manually in QuickBooks, and it doesn't look like fun to me, especially maybe one store, low volume, you could get away with it for a while, but after a while, you're going to hit a breaking point with multiple stores, your order volume increasing, and it gets more difficult and more difficult to reconcile.
Perfect.
Another
And
thing,
then
another thing I get asked about is, the profit and loss statements in QuickBooks. Now, that's that links up with your products. So, what some people are asking, they're saying that their product itself is in QuickBooks, but if you want your profit and loss, then you have to have your cost of goods sold, your income sales account, and then your inventory asset account. You receive the product into QuickBooks, the cost goes in with that, and then when we post the information into QuickBooks and there's a product on that order, it syncs up to the product in QuickBooks, and that's how you get this information from the product to go on your P&L for profit and loss. You've received it, now you've sold it, and now you can see all the information that goes along with the all your reporting and stuff in QuickBooks.
And I wanted to take a quick second to answer Mary's question because it's super relevant. David and I actually, just to say what the question is for those that aren't looking at the chat, can you show an example of a settlement report and how it posts to QuickBooks? David and I talked about this right before the webinar, and we'd love to be able to show it. We can show a Shopify payout, I think, if you have one.
I
Even
don't.
that. That's
So,
okay. So yeah, one of the problems that we run into is that Amazon, we can't set up a test account through Amazon. So we would have to be working with live customer data, which is obviously a no-no. We wouldn't be able to show other customers' data. Um, so it's really hard for us to demo that live. However, we do have documentation in our help center that shows the process of doing an Amazon payout with screenshots. So I will drop that in the chat. I think that does a really good job of explaining it, and it goes word by word, so it'll be a lot easier to follow. But yeah,
yeah,
some of the like fee stuff can be hard for us to demo live, unfortunately.
and I can go in here and just kind of give you there's two parts to this. There's the payout report that downloads, which would be here. That payout report has a summary page on it. It looks exactly like the information you get in Shopify for the daily payouts. It has all the fees in there. It has all the transactions in there that go on that payout report. All we're doing in Webgility is we're configuring where those fees are going to post. So in our setup, the expenses and fees here, we're just going in and configuring it where they're going to post. So like here, your expense details, bank service charges, that's typically an expense account for bank service charges. Some people will set it up as cost of goods sold. There's different ways people set up their accounting, but either one of those will work. Let me go in here to the payout report. In the payout report, you can see here, same thing. You got the clearing account, you got the bank service charges, and you got that on the check side, you got that on the deposit side. If there's a refund, the refunds are going in there and being recorded here, like credit memo. So basically, you're defining where those fees are going to post in QuickBooks, but you get the entire report that comes in over here for Amazon and Shopify. In this case, this is Shopify. I don't have an Amazon connected to this account, but the fee would come in here. The fee post, we set it up with the automation, our Webgility automation, to post automatically when that fee report posts from Shopify. It marks those orders as paid, so they're no longer on the they're not open on the AR account anymore. They get then moved to your clearing or holding account as a paid transaction. So once they're marked as paid, those fees are all posted where we're defining those fees to post. And it ties out so that what's left over in your clearing or holding account is what you got paid at the bank. And then you just transfer that out. I got high volume customers, might get 1,000 orders a day. Typically, they're transferring maybe a date range out of their clearing or holding account. They're not typically going order by order anymore. They might be picking just an amount that they're clearing out of their clearing account each day. The smaller, let's say you're doing anywhere from 100 to 500 orders. I see people going in there and just picking, the individual orders that match the clearing accounts and transferring those out. But yeah, as the order volume goes up, people find ways to be a little bit, quicker on that reconciliation, that last step of the reconciliation of clearing out that holding or clearing account. So let's look at questions and see.
Yeah, we
Um,
have a few that we could catch up on here. There's
mhm.
one that if you want to scroll up in the chat, David, Cherie Leach posted one. What are your recommendations for companies that utilize bank feeds to match deposits coming in? I'm finding that Webgility batches are not matching to the actual bank deposit. I know that's something that we've sort of briefly touched on in the last couple of weeks, so you might be
So
able to.
so yeah, it depends on what store you have too. Some of the stores I have on my notes here that I was going to talk about this, so it's a good question. Thank you. Some of the stores don't have a fee report. Okay, not all stores have like a um, you know like Shopify has um, it its payout report that will download. Amazon has its settlement report that downloads. Some stores will have some fees, some stores won't. So if you have a store that doesn't have a way for us to grab the fees, then you have to manually take those fees out of that clearing or holding account. So there's an extra step there. If we can't automate it, then you have to do that step manually. You don't want to take and post to a bank feed account. That's typically what we recommend not doing. We recommend taking and posting into that clearing account, and then that transaction amount that you get in that clearing account is what you take the fees out of that if we aren't automating the fees, and then you transfer that remaining amount towards your bank statement of what you got paid. So there are some different steps. Some stores don't have a fee report that we download and post, like a Magento or a BigCommerce. Those don't have fee reports. There's plenty of stores that don't, but there's the biggest two stores, the Shopify and Amazon, they do have a fee report that we download and post to help with that reconciliation. Otherwise, if we can get, like if you have a Magento and you have PayPal in there, I would separate out the PayPal to a clearing account. Then when you get paid on PayPal and you take any fees out of PayPal, now PayPal we can typically connect PayPal in Webgility to get the fees. So we would go in and set up a PayPal account so that when your orders came in, we could then say, okay, let's go to the fees here. We would go in here and we'd say configure your PayPal or your Stripe. Those are ones we can get fees from. And then that fee would be taken out of the clearing or holding account, and what would be left would be what you're reconciling. But the main goal here is to make sure what is coming in from the order matches what's in the website. So the order total, your tax gets put out to the tax vendor as a line item in QuickBooks, and then your shipping or any of your fees or discounts, all that has to be tied out into QuickBooks properly. If you have any concerns that that's not happening properly, please reach out to us, have us review your setup, make sure that we've got it configured to help you out the best we can. And as I said, some can be automated more than others. It just depends on the store or marketplace you have.
Perfect. And then a lot of questions, so I'm trying to like filter through them, answer what I can in the chat. I think it might be a good idea to just go over. I know Steve asked about fees and Amazon just in general. There's a lot to unpack there when it comes to
Yeah.
Amazon. I mean, ultimately, everything's going to filter through your settlement report, right? Like that's you're kind of at the behest of Amazon's 2 week settlement report period. Um,
Yeah, and I can talk a little bit about that.
yeah.
What we do when we set up the fees for Amazon, and I'll just use Shopify here as kind of a um, just a visual. When we're doing the fees, here I'm just doing one fee. It's a merchant fee. It's for using them as a payment provider. Now Amazon has a lot more. So in our Amazon configuration, there's a bunch of different settings that we go through that would be on this page for Amazon. Those settings tie out the individual fees. So there's also in Amazon a granular setting for fees. The most common I see that people would say break out a couple of fees from Amazon in the granular settings in Webgility would be like their advertising fee, because you can get a different tax break for your advertising stuff. So they'll check Amazon fee to go their advertising fee to go to a separate account that they want to keep track of. So that's not all under one parent account. So we would take Amazon merchant account fees, and then Amazon would take its 26 whatever fees and post them under there. Amazon does have a lot of fees. What we don't recommend doing is going in and granularly taking all the Amazon fees and posting all the individual accounts. Um, QuickBooks itself, you're trying to post the information that you need to act on. If you're just separating out Amazon fees just because you're just trying to manually make sure that everything is paid and everything lines up, our software does that automatically. If there is a fee that doesn't tie out properly, over here in when that payout report goes to post, it's going to error. It's going to say, hey, something's not right here. There's an error. It doesn't match what the order is to what the fee is, and it's going to error. So we can then go back with our support team, find out what's going on with the order. Maybe the order had an update, or there was a condition that was a new condition on Amazon where they held something and we weren't expecting them to do that, and then we can go in and fix that for you. QuickBooks, you do not, like I said again, especially if you have higher volume, you do not want to separate out every single Amazon fee to a separate account. That ups your transaction amounts into QuickBooks. Um, uh, Makes your QuickBooks company file get big really quickly. So what we're doing is we're posting under like the main Amazon fee account, and then everything's listed under that for all the different fees, but it does tie out from the report of what you get, does tie out in the clearing or holding account. So what's left over is what you're transferring. Amazon also holds amounts. So it's not something you have control over. There's amounts that Amazon holds. There's amounts that overlap one settlement report to the other settlement report. Settlement reports are every 2 weeks. That clearing or holding account seldom goes to zero on an Amazon account because of them holding things. They may hold a refund. They may hold just an amount in your account on Amazon that you don't have control over. You don't have an input or output on it. They just hold the amount. That amount can be big. That amount can be small. That amount will keep your clearing or holding account from going to zero. So the other thing is Amazon every 2 weeks does not end on the end of a month. They've staggered that so that everybody has a different fee period for their servers to handle the load better. So if you say close out the end of a month on your books, that will stop Amazon from being automated with Webgility, because it needs that data from the previous month to settle the current data on that payout report or settlement report that comes in and post. So there is a different method between just doing accounting and normal counting of practices, like maybe closing at the end of a month. In Amazon, you can't do that. Amazon controls that, and it doesn't close at the end of a month. So e-commerce accounting, especially with Amazon, is Amazon controls it. So you kind of have to work with that, because you can call up Amazon and complain and all that kind of stuff, but they're not going to make a change. They're just too big to do that. So there are some differences depending on what kind of store that you have connected. And again, if you're having trouble tying out amounts or anything on your Webgility account, please contact us. We'll take a review of what your settings are and find out why that's happening because it should tie out.
Yeah, and it looks like a couple people do want some sort of those refresher sessions. So I will, Mary, like you said, if you asked for it last week and we haven't gotten back to you, I will get with the team internally, make sure that happens.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Somebody mentioned the previous reserve account and the reserve account. Thank you. That is the term that I needed to use. So a lot of times in Amazon, if you're not in control of it, sometimes it's better not to post it into your accounting. So we do have a button in WebGility that says, don't download the previous and current reserve amount into your accounting, and that helps you see more what your clearing or holding account is going to settle as. And it doesn't, if somebody has like, I've had customers that do really high volume on Amazon and they might have $4,000, $8,000 in that current reserve. They don't want that offsetting um, the amounts they see in their QuickBooks because it's not something they control. They Amazon totally controls that. So there's not an input and an output that goes through WebGility that offsets that amount. So sometimes it's easier to just turn that amount off and not put it into your accounting. If you do put it into your accounting, you have to know that that's going to just be building in your clearing or holding account. So yes, good point on the reserve amount.
and to my knowledge, Steve Mizrek asked, commissions, Amazon commissions aren't attached to the order. To my knowledge, everything goes through, aside from the basic order details, goes through the settlement report, right?
Everything goes through the settlement report, but yes, when you go into Amazon and especially in WebGility, and you open up an order, you'll see in the history up here for the fees, you'll see maybe one or two fees from Amazon. Now, that's not the only fees on the order. The fees on the order, um, there's many fees and they don't pertain specifically to that order. There's warehouse fees. There's, if they change, if you're big enough and you have warehouses in different locations, they may do a warehouse product adjustment where they ship to a different warehouse. They're going to charge you for that. There's all sorts of fees. Not all of them pertain specifically to an order. I've had people, they get the report, like an email report from Amazon that this order came in and it shows assumed fees on the order. And they're like, I want to post that as a line item on my order so I can tie out the fees to that order and know what fees came with that order. Well, there's so many fees that don't pertain to that order that still need to get posted into your accounting. You still need to account for them. And also orders that they show on an email, it's assumed fees. Those fees can change by the end of the 2-week period, settlement period. You can't assume that that fee that comes in as an assumed fee on an order through an email where Amazon notes that this might be the fee, that's not your final fee. So yes, there's only a couple fees that are, particular to the order. There's a lot of fees from Amazon that don't pertain to that particular order.
Yeah, and Steve, if you wanted to run tests with us internally and see where we can, pull in what we can without having to rely entirely on the settlement report, we can also, if you talk to our team, we can set something up.
Yeah, and we,
But
we
yeah,
do.
unfortunately, like ultimately, anything that comes through the Amazon settlement report, it will always come through the settlement report. There's no way that we can like piecemeal things to come through orders rather than the settlement report. It's just the way that Amazon has it set up.
Yeah, yeah. If you say I just want to post the order fees, we could forgo, not do the settlement report, and we can just post fees. But with the settlement report, when we download and post that, what that does is it helps us tie out and make sure that we're not missing anything.
Yeah.
So, that's the reason we want to do that. There are other instances of, say, if you have a online store and you have Amazon Pay, or you're doing where Amazon is fulfilling the order, but the order came through, say, a Shopify. Now, what you've done is you've disconnected the order that comes in from Shopify, but it's fulfilled on Amazon. And now that settlement report is crossing over two stores. Now we can't use the settlement report in that case. In that case, we have to go to a different way of either manually doing the fees for Amazon or just download the fees that are the couple of fees that might be due on that order, just, and post those only, but that's not going to tie out all the fees coming in from Amazon. So there are reasons that, you can't have a complete settlement report. And it depends on your workflow and how you're selling on your website or your marketplace.
And then to Cherie's question about WooCommerce and payout reports, to my knowledge, and David, I don't know if anything has changed recently, we don't download WooCommerce payout reports as of yet. It's not something that we've
No,
built in.
no WooCommerce reports, but if you have a payment provider that we can connect to, say it's a Shopify, um, not Shopify, but like a PayPal or something like that. If we have that payment provider that we can connect to, we can then download that merchant fee for that payment provider along with the order. We can then post it as a line item on the order, or we could post it just to an account as a fee. So there are some things we can do there, but it depends on who your merchant account is. Authorized.net, we don't have that, so we can't get that. But if like, yeah, so if it's like a PayPal, now PayPal is the only one I see that people can get away with going directly to the PayPal account with the bank feed in QuickBooks. So it does work to take the PayPal account and merchant fee and post it directly to the PayPal account in QuickBooks. But in all other regards, we're saying that you should be doing a clearing or holding account. It's PayPal's an exception there.
Got it, got it. And to the point about WooCommerce and us not having the payout report functionality, just I always like to kind of throw this in on these customer webinars because um, there's a conversation that we can have about features that don't aren't currently in Webgility. We're always able to do what's called a customization to sort of bring new features into Webgility. The ultimate, I guess, deciding factor for a customization generally is, are enough people asking for this? Then we can add it to our roadmap. So if we have hundreds of customers asking for a WooCommerce integration with the payout reports, generally we'll add that to the roadmap. So if people do want that, make sure to let us know so that we can add it to the roadmap. If you feel that you need it and it's something that is vital to your business and that it would make your day so much easier, you can essentially pay us directly for the development cost of adding it to the roadmap without having it just bought in from other customers. Obviously, that's a paid option. It generally costs the amount of development time. So, depending on how long something like that takes to build out, it can get a little bit pricey, but that is always an option. So, if there's something that's like critical to your business and you're comfortable, again, paying for the development cost on that, it gets added to the product and everybody has access to it going forward. I'm
Yep.
sure a lot of people would thank you for that. But it's always an option. So I like to let people know if it's not currently on our roadmap, that doesn't mean that we can't build it. We just essentially have to make it worth it for us.
And I see a question there. You just reach out to our support team asking for a customization, and they'll get you routed to the right people in our teams to do the customization request. I need to clarify here. Shopify has a payout report. WooCommerce, typically WooCommerce and Shopify has a payout report because they have Shopify payments and a
Mhm.
bunch of other Shopify payment, you know, you know, maybe it's different features of the Shopify payments. Now, because Shopify has its own payment gateway built into Shopify that you can use, they have a payout report. Amazon, it's the same thing. Amazon is its own, payment structure, has its own payout report. It's Amazon payments, right? So when you go to a store like WooCommerce or BigCommerce or Magento, now they don't have their own payment gateway built into the website. So you are then able to get authorized.net or PayPal payments or, a Stripe or some other payment provider and have it in that website. Now that's why they don't have like a payout report available. it's not built in that that payment provider is part of the website, so they don't have a built-in payout report. So you have to think of that when you're asking for information like does WooCommerce have a payout report? Well, WooCommerce doesn't have its own payment provider built into WooCommerce, and they don't have a payout report that goes with that. So whatever payment provider you go in there, we would have to have a configuration to connect to it. The ones that we have are PayPal, Stripe. We have that. I have a WooCommerce open right now. We can connect to PayPal and bring the merchant fee in. Stripe, we can connect to your Stripe account and then match up the fee for the Stripe payment through your WooCommerce. Now, if there's other payment providers you have, those are the ones we're saying, put that in your request. We will always keep track of that. We have enough people requesting that. We then build it into our software. So that's how that works. But yeah, you have to think of the platform. Why is it that some platforms have a payout report and some don't? Um, that's why.
Yeah, great
Hopefully that,
explanation, David.
yeah, hopefully that lets you understand that.
Cool. Can you bring an entire transaction in from Stripe or just the fees? It would
We're
just
bring,
be the fees, right?
yeah, we're matching up the fee as a Stripe provider, payment provider. We do
Because Stripe
have,
won't have the actual like inventory product information. It'll just have the additional fee that came in to process the payment, right?
I was going to show you, but evidently my test won't let me open up another store. I was going to show you a list of all the stores, but if you go on our website
And
and
actually,
look at,
if you want to hand me the screencast,
yeah,
I can
yeah,
sort of show this as well.
let's do that. Let me stop this.
Because I was gonna show, I believe it was,
The list of what we connect to, and
yeah, Steve asked about the features. Perfect. All right, so if you just go to webgility.com and at the very top you see integrations, you can just hit view all. And this shows obviously all the systems that we integrate with, but if you scroll down to the very bottom, you'll see it's kind of hidden. I feel like we maybe need to do a better job of calling this out on this page because it is sort of hidden there. But if you see the full feature list, you can compare different sales channels and what capabilities they have inside of WebGility. So you'll want to, in this case, we're going to be talking about QuickBooks Enterprise generally. So you want to make sure that's set to QuickBooks Enterprise, and then you can select the stores that you do use or plan on maybe adding, and then you can see what is possible to bring over. So if you have an Etsy, and we'll just say WooCommerce, you'll be able to see, okay, there's no marketplace fees because it's not a marketplace, obviously. So can cancel orders in store, no capability through Etsy or WooCommerce, but there is through Shopify. So if you wanted to play around with the features and fees and things, the differences between each store, this is definitely the place to do it. Obviously, if you're talking to our team and have questions like that, we're more than happy to answer them. But if you're, feeling froggy and you want to just go on the website and see what's available, this is definitely the easiest, I'd say, most comprehensive way of seeing the differences between
yeah, and
each.
even the page behind that, it shows you can look at what marketplaces we have, standalone stores we have, the shipping providers we have. You can go through and use the different filters there to see what we can bring in and what we can post and what we connect to. So
Yeah.
like right there, you see TikTok Shop.
Hmm.
You see Stripe.
Oh, here, let
Stripe
me go back to its online stores. There we go.
And you'll see some of these like Stripe, it's a payment provider, but also it's a POS.
Hmm.
So there's different things that can be set up here, like TikTok Shop. That's a plugin that comes in on your website. Typically, I see people with Shopify having a
Yeah.
TikTok or a pay, a Facebook or something coming through Shopify. It does make more complexities, but we can still separate those out, go to separate clearing accounts or holding accounts. There's some tax differences with how those post. But yeah, every single store and marketplace is different. That's how this whole e-commerce grew up. They're all
Yeah.
competing against each other. I'm going to have this feature. I don't have this feature. You don't have that feature. I have this feature.
And a lot of them,
So
like a good example of this is Shopify, and like you just mentioned, TikTok Shop, like where we don't connect directly to TikTok Shop, right? Like if you were to go on WebGility and try to connect to TikTok Shop, it's not an option. But Shopify allows you to connect your TikTok shop to your Shopify, in which case then we can download the orders that come in from your TikTok shop through your Shopify. And there's a lot of those instances, especially with the larger stores. Shopify probably being the best example here. Another example would be like you can use Amazon Pay on your Shopify. And kind of a caveat with that, we talked about it last week in our Webgility Online version of the same conversation, is that when you use Amazon Pay on your Shopify, the fees that come through on those orders from Amazon Pay don't come through on the orders in your Shopify. They come through on the settlement report for Amazon. So there's always these little things that you need to be aware of. There's intricacies to every single workflow. Um, I mean, if you have a store with maybe 5 products and like 100 orders a week, you might not run into any of those issues. But the more stores that you add, the more complexities that you add, the more there is to consider when you're pulling that information. Which is ultimately that's why we're here. That's why we do these webinars to kind of give you the insights to understand the ins and outs of the product. Obviously, again, we're kind of starting with the basics, but our goal here is to get to the more nitty gritty kind of corner case stuff to help you guys understand a little bit deeper. But
And
yeah,
and
I'll put this link in the chat just so you guys have it. I know it's just under the integration section if you click view all, but just to make sure you guys have it here.
and I'm seeing people talking in our chat about Amazon and how frustrating Amazon is. What I'd tell you is you need to look at the information from Amazon and deal with the information you really need to have to deal with and be able to control. So, like, I've seen people do pivot tables for all the fees in Amazon, and I'm like, why are you doing this? And they're like, well, we're tracking all these things. And I'm like, why are you tracking that? Which ones are most important to you? And they'll list off like maybe 3 things, but yet they're doing this pivot table on every single line from the payout report. Well, obviously our software is matching that up, so you don't have to do that. That's a lot of extra work. As soon as that order volume goes up, you're having somebody tear their hair out basically to try and keep up with it. So one of the things we're doing is we're automating that. So what we're saying is, let's not have you tear your hair out. Let's match things up. Let's get it into your accounting so that you can reconcile it. You still have to make sure that it's reconciling. We do get on most stores and marketplaces, we do get fees, but we are going to get discounts. We are going to get, refunds. We are going to get the initial transaction. We are going to separate that out, post it into your accounting so that you can effectively have less time doing your reconciliation, your last step. So that's what you have to look at is, we're automating this to make it easier on you. So you're not sitting there trying to do like some sort of pivot table in Excel, trying to manually match things up. Um, it just, another question there is, how come you can't show certain fees on Amazon? Well, we went over that is not all fees are associated with a direct order, but we do have in our orders, once we post an Amazon order, you can go into that order in Webgility. You can click on a green dot and see where the fee posted in QuickBooks. You can go into the settlement report that posted. You can open up a couple levels down in that settlement report in Webgility. You can click on a green dot of where the fee, where the transaction, where everything posted into QuickBooks. You can click on that green dot. It will open it up in QuickBooks and it'll show you where it's posting so that you don't have any doubt that it was posted, that it does tie out and it is working.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. And just to wrap it up here, because I know we've gone over a little bit on our plan time. I usually plan just for an hour just to make sure everybody can get their questions in and that we can get through all the stuff. Last week for the Webgility Online version of this conversation, we actually kind of leaned on our partner Seth David, who runs Nerd Enterprises Inc. He does a lot of QuickBooks Online consulting for e-commerce businesses. He has a whole course that goes into e-commerce accounting and how to kind of manage it. He is more of a QuickBooks Online person, so we didn't use his content for this week. But he did make a whole video for us, kind of explaining the basics of reconciliation, just understanding the building blocks, understanding how, putting them into putting the orders and fees into a clearing account, and then doing that final reconciliation, separate the fees, affects your P&L. So he does like a very visual representation of it. I'm going to share the video in chat just because I think that it is a really good resource for those that are trying to understand specifically how that reconciliation works. Again, from a fundamental level, just like putting the pieces together in your brain. And then I think it's important to have that knowledge going into doing it automated, because then you understand if something doesn't work, you kind of can reverse engineer it, so to speak. Shuri, yes, the settlement report is under the orders tab. If you're in a Shopify store, it'll say payout or Shopify payouts. And if you're in an Amazon store, it'll say Amazon settlement report or settlement reports, I think. Um, yeah, so I pasted that YouTube video in chat. Go ahead and check it out. Again, if you just like want a basic refresher, it's a pretty quick watch. Goes into the
Yeah,
basics.
he shows a kind of a manual way of doing it so that he's showing the process. It's not showing that, Webgility posted this into QBO and then, you just do this. He is just showing what the basic is manually of doing a reconciliation in QBO.
Yeah. And while he is doing it in QBO, the philosophy behind it is the exact same. I mean, he's doing a lot of things in the P&L report. So like, and that doesn't look that different in QuickBooks Desktop, right? So I think the philosophy is there, and that's the most important thing. Really appreciate you guys joining today. If you found it helpful at all, if you find these customer webinars helpful at all, the only thing that we can ask for is one, that you keep attending if you find them helpful, hopefully. And then two, if you want to kind of shout us out at all, go through if if you have a Shopify store or if you have like an installed app, you can leave us a review and mention the customer webinars as sort of a selling point for you. It just kind of lets people know that we're actually helping you guys because that's really what we care about is making sure that you guys are getting the most help that you can. I will follow up internally with the team to get those that want refresher trainings scheduled, and then we can reach out to you as soon as possible. And then, as I said at the beginning, we will send the recording out probably tomorrow. I just have to go and download it, edit it down, and then re-upload it to YouTube. And then on the landing page for each week's webinar, you'll see a link that takes you to our YouTube channel to watch all of them that we've done in the past recorded. So I'm better by doing and asking questions while doing. I like that. That's a good philosophy. Having questions is always good. Sessions are amazing. Thank you for the information and continued support. Hey, that's why we're here. We are going to try to do one of these every single week. I'm actually going to be on vacation for a couple weeks starting at the beginning of June. So there's going to be 2 weeks where we're not here, but we will pick them up right after we get back. So if you
Yep.
have suggestions or want to kind of let us know what type of content you'd like to see in the future, obviously we get these sort of conversations from conversations with you guys. So after I end the webinar here, it should give you a survey that asks you what you'd like to see. If you get a random thought throughout the day and want to give us a suggestion, just let us know. You can email me directly at john.may@webgility.com as well.
And
I'll put
John,
that in
can
the chat.
you go to our help docs real quick?
Yeah. It's just help.webgility.com if you guys ever want the quick way to get there. We just
So
redesigned it as well.
we do have a lot of resource here. We do have like Webgility Online and we have Webgility Desktop. There are differences in that. Webgility Desktop deals with a lot of inventory and advanced inventory stuff. Um, Webgility Online pairs with QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online has less inventory control, like inventory locations, unit of measure, all that does not exist in QuickBooks Online, but those two products pair, the Webgility Online and QuickBooks Online, and then QuickBooks Enterprise Desktop and Webgility Desktop kind of pair together because those features are matched better. So if you do search for questions and stuff here, we have a lot of documents that we work on here all the time, keeping them up to date to try and help you with having information at your fingertips. If you don't find an answer to a question, just reach out to our chat. We'll be happy to try and get you the answer and help you out. And if you already have Webgility and you're struggling with something, reach out to us. Ask for a refresher session. We will then go and look at your configuration, make sure you're at the best configuration for your website that you're using or your marketplace that you're using. So yeah.
Yeah, and we really again we appreciate you guys joining. I mean,
Thank
The
you,
fact that we
everybody.
make a difference at all is the biggest point for us. One other thing, just on the help center stuff, we currently are looking at ways to make it easier for you to find answers directly through chat if you don't know how to find them through the actual help center search function. Uh, our system that we use internally has some AI functionality that allows us to tie certain questions with certain answers that lead you to the right help doc. So as you use the help center, you may see that things improve greatly over the next couple months. So again, appreciate you guys joining. Look forward to the email tomorrow with the recording and everything that we talked about today. It'll include a link to that YouTube video that we talked about as well. And then otherwise, we will see you, if not next week. You're always more than welcome to attend the Webgility online versions of these conversations. It just might be a little deja vu when we get back to the same conversation the following week. But you're more than welcome to sign up for any of the events that we have as a Webgility customer. So appreciate you guys. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and have a good week.